Okay, welcome everyone to Berkeley Business Bootcamp, presented by the Berkeley Chamber of Commerce, thanks to a generous sponsorship from the Berkeley Public Library. Our rep from the library today is Jeff Finley on the call joining us. Thank you so much, Jeff. We're very grateful for your support. I'm delighted today to welcome our speaker, Hanna. She's going to be presenting on the gift of feedback. And this is going to be an interactive, dynamic presentation. We'll be dropping a form into the chat in just a few moments. Feel free to download that editable PDF and we can work through it together over the next hour. So with over 25 years in the corporate world, Hanna Bankier helps organizations and individuals realize sustainable results by aligning employee performance and organizational excellence. Her domain is to guide organizations and individuals in adapting to change and achieving more positive cultures. She works with organizations to elevate performance of people while creating energized and productive teams. In addition to setting standards and inspiring people to move strategies and plans into action, she adds her insight, knowledge, and capabilities to shape policies, make decisions, and rally enthusiasm for change. Hanna focuses on connecting people to possibilities. So please welcome Hanna Bankier from Working Solutions Group.
Yay, thank you. That's me. Yes, I help successful leaders manage their time and energy by becoming more skillful communicators, strategic thinkers, and resilient individuals. And I do that in a few different ways. One is through one-on-one coaching, and another pillar is to go in organizations and work with and do trainings and work with things like skillful communication, team alignment, culture, and of course, the topic of today, which is feedback. So I'm going to share my screen on and off and really get in here so we get to look at it together. So feedback really is a gift, or rather it can be when it's skillfully received and also given. So you are in the right place today if you are in a place where feedback plays a role in your work or at home or wherever you are. Because 75% of people believe that feedback can be valuable, and a whopping 92% of employees believe that redirected feedback can improve performance. Yay, who doesn't want that, right? What a tremendous gift that is to give. So we all want to learn and grow, and we all want to do better. So what we got today is about an hour, and I love talking about feedback. This is like a cornerstone of skillful leadership and about skillful communication. And I can talk about feedback all day long. We don't have the space and capacity for that. So I will give you a way to continue your learning and continue the conversation with me afterwards and continue going. Does that sound good? Yes, awesome. So feedback really is a sliver of skillful communication, and skillful communication is a cornerstone in effective leadership. So this is a skill that we can all use regardless of where we are and anywhere. So my question to you at this point is, when you hear the word feedback, what do you think or feel? Please share a couple words in the chat of what comes up for you when I say feedback. Opportunity, nice. Improvement, constructive criticism, someone's experience with me. Yeah, all of these are great. Negative, right? So most of us really feel that feedback is a threat and we want to run away. This hopeful, I like that. So the hopeful that it's going to be constructive and that you're going to grow and learn from it. That's not usually the experience. Like most of us is like, I'm out of here. I want to run down the street. Don't talk to me. I can't imagine. Ooh, it's scary. So my desire for you today is really that we can shift that experience to do more of what you already expressed in the chat and really see it as a gift. And when I go in organizations and do trainings on feedback, it's usually a multi-step process. And today we're going to do a taster of that. So you get a chance to start flexing your muscles and really think and shift your perspective. So the thing with feedback is that it really shapes our success. Any organization, any human, any organism is constantly getting feedback, and it shapes how we change and move and what we become. For instance, if you are a business owner and you run a bakery and you keep on pushing these oatmeal gluten-free cookies or cupcakes that nobody wants, you're getting feedback. And you wouldn't, as a business owner, continue to push for a service or a product that nobody's interested in, right? That's complete waste of resources. So you are, as a business owner and a leader, doing market research all the time. Like, what's working? What might need a tweak? What is completely premature? Maybe my customer base will be ready for this in a few years, but they're not there right now, right then. So feedback, in a sense, then, is like market research for us. What is working and what could use a little tweak here and there? So when we are thinking of it like that, and we have our two different human needs, and feedback lands right in the middle of those. We have this tension between these two human needs. We want to be accepted and appreciated for just the way we are right now. And we want and are looking for that stretching, the need to learn and grow. And we all do it all the time, right? No kid knew how to walk the first time they tried, but we had this desire to walk or to desire to learn how to speak, maybe even multiple languages. So feedback really ends up in that tension. And feedback that most of us dreaded is kind of like broccoli and exercise. You know it's good for you. And sometimes it's just hard to lace up those sneakers to go for that run or for that walk. And sometimes you're like, ooh, I'd rather go for the cupcake than the broccoli. But we need it. And so we're going to get good at it because it's here. It's all around us. And again, we have been receiving feedback our entire lives. When we started learning how to crawl as little kids and babies, and most of us actually learned how to crawl. Some of us bypassed it and start walking right away, but most of us were crawling. And we got a lot of feedback. We got feedback from the environment. Ooh, if I put my hand out that far, I'm gonna fall flat on my face. We got the encouragement from the people around us, like, come on, you can do it, I believe in you. So feedback can be amazing and truly valuable. And when it comes to feedback, we have two different components, so to speak. We have the giver of feedback and we have the receiver of feedback. And most of us are not yet skilled at being either the giver or the receiver, right? We sort of don't really want to do it, so we say it really quickly, and then we don't want to hear it, so we run away. So I want to just invite you to really think about you as the receiver of feedback and the tremendous amount of power that you have as the receiver. Let me show you how. As the receiver of feedback, you can really start working it preemptively. You can start pulling for feedback. You can start asking for it preemptively. And that makes it much less scary. Our nervous system is not all hijacked. We are much more in control. And you can start really leading with curiosity, as if you're learning something. What is going on? What kind of feedback is out there for me that can shape my learning and my growth? And we can do that in a few different ways. One is to have a very open-ended questions. For instance, what's your experience working with me? What do you experience that I'm doing well? What do you see where I get in my own way? Because we all have blind spots and we don't always know where we get in our own way. Or we can hone it in and be very, very specific. What did you think about the colors and the fonts I was using in my presentation today? It's an example of being very, very specific. And here you are then asking for that feedback, looking preemptively to say, I want to see if there's something I can do better. And it's not necessarily better as in comparing yourself with somebody else, but better than the version that was you a week ago or a month ago or the last presentation that I gave. What is it that I can do that will make it better for you without abandoning myself, of course? So we can pull, we can ask for these very open-ended questions, or we can be very, very specific. We also have more power, different kind of power when it comes to being the receiver of feedback. The power that the receiver also has is that we control these things. When we receive feedback, whether it's something we were pulling for or something that was given to us or maybe unsolicited, we choose what we want to let in or what we do not want to let in. We choose how we make sense of this message that we've been given. We choose if we're going to flare up all our defenses and say, they don't know what they're talking about, or we're choosing to say, again, or we're putting on that little curiosity hat and say, interesting, that's their experience. Is it just one person? Is it many people's experiences working with me? Is there something in there that I can take and put into my toolkit, much like the things I want to put in your guys' toolkit here today? And we choose whether to change or not. So this is all in our control. We choose our own growth and our own learning. And a question I would want to give you just to reflect on is, what happens if I don't change? What happens if I don't try something new? If I'm being given this feedback, much like the oatmeal cupcake example earlier in market research, what happens if I continue and I doing and staying at my status quo versus trying something new? And it might not necessarily be that the giver, the piece of advice or the piece of feedback that's coming to me is absolutely correct. You still have to discern if this aligns with you. You might get a piece of feedback that you're like, that's just not aligned with my values, so I'm just actually not going to entertain that idea. But to pause a little bit, to decide and discern, is this something valuable? Is this person giving me a gift that is valuable for me? One way to ask for feedback and pull for it is basically to ask for advice. And the beauty here is that most people love giving advice. So again, you can choose, is that advice you want to follow or not? Just because you're pulling for it doesn't mean that you have signed up to then blindly do whatever people are asking you or suggesting for you to do. So we're in this position when we then have feedback is coming our way. And it could be because we choose to, it could be because we've been pulling for it, or because it's coming our way. And here I am, and what do I now do with this? I might have been given a piece of feedback that really makes me flare up, and my nervous system, and I'm like, my amygdala is hijacked, and my prefrontal cortex is not turned on in this very moment. and I am just sitting with it, and it's like, I cannot believe they just said that, or I don't know what they're talking about, and I feel really threatened. Again, going back to these two competing needs, my need for being accepted and appreciated for who I am today. So I want to give you a line, a little phrase that I want you to put in your back pocket for whatever next time you receive feedback, to just have with you. Because what we want is to not have an instantaneous reaction, but rather crafting a response. So the answer to any and all feedback initially can be this. This is my invitation to you. I really appreciate you taking the time and effort to tell me. Thank you. And then you can step away from that situation, right? You have just decided that I'm appreciating somebody taking the time and the effort. They may not have done it in a skillful way. You might sit with really hurt feelings, or be a complete question mark, or like, I don't even know what they're talking about. Or you might be in this like, wow, thank you. I had no idea that me chewing gum so loudly really annoys you. And now I get a chance to shift that. I really appreciate that feedback. Thank you so much. So again, it's a really quick, easy little sentence. I really appreciate you taking the time and effort to tell me. Thank you. And then you get to move on. All right, so that's some tips and tricks for when you're on the receiving end. Now, most people prefer to be on the giving end, right? I want to give feedback. And most of us want to like get in there and do it and really like just, if you could just do it my way, I do it better, just align with what I want. So let's talk about the power and the place when you are the giver. And here we have the push. So the first check I want everybody before they decide to start doling out feedback or advice, right or left, is to really discern for yourself, where is this coming from? What is my motivation for giving feedback right now? Or this particular piece of feedback to this particular person in this particular moment? Is it coming from a helpful place? Am I giving a gift? Am I thinking, how can I help this person learn and grow? And if it's coming from a helpful place, then you get the go ahead. Check. You get the green light to go ahead and move on and do it. But if that's not your motivation, hit the pause button and really assess what's the importance here. So the communication skills and the feedback that are so closely tied together really boils down to this one crucial piece. Most of us want to be happier, more fulfilled, and more content. And I don't know if you've heard of this long-lasting study that's been done. It's been following a group of people for 45 years. And they really looked into all these different aspects of their lives of what is a fulfilling, happy, content life. And no, it is not the 3-car garage. It is not the title that you have at work. It is not the material standing. It's not just socioeconomic standing. It is the quality of your relationship. Over and over and over again, we see that the quality of your relationship stands in direct correlation with how content you are with your life. The quality of your relationships pretty darn quickly boils down to how skillful are you in communicating. So learning how to communicate in a skillful way or how to give effective feedback is basically the best investment you can ever make, because it impacts all these different parts of your life. So the tips and tricks that we're doing here today is something that you can start using right away. And that could be in your workplace setting. It can be at home. It can be in life. It can be, right, when you're standing in the aisle of Berkeley Bowl and somebody's placed their cart in the middle of the aisle and you go like, what is going on? How are you not thinking about it? How am I choosing or not choosing to convey and really share what I want to get off my chest? So we're going to look into this TAPE acronym that I've created, and I want to make sure that you have your action guide with you, whether you probably haven't had the chance to print it. And if you have problems with it for whatever reason, if you can have pen and paper next to you, that would be super, super helpful. So thank you for dropping it in the chat again. So we're going to look at this TAPE slide, and I will walk you through this acronym, and we will learn from that. So TAPE stands for these different components that really comes into effective and skillful communication. So T stands for timing, and timing is everything. And timing comes into a couple of different places. One can be you had an interaction with somebody, or there's been some sort of situation and it's not quite sitting well with you, right? And you're 24 hours, 48 hours later, you're still chewing on it and thinking about it. Then I would say it's probably time to step up and talk about it. So that's one part of the timing. Another thing about timing is if you want to give redirective feedback to somebody, let's make sure we do it in private. Unless you have in your workplace, in your work setting with your team, created such a trusting psychological safety environment that people are actively asking and encouraging to be receiving feedback in a more public setting. Highly unusual, but it does happen. And if you got in there at your workplace, congratulations, that's an amazing place to be. So otherwise, I would say redirective feedback in private. Positive feedback in public. Everybody feels better when your accomplishments, what you're doing well, what's going well is being recognized and acknowledged by others as well. And this is a crucial component when it comes to really creating that positive culture. And you ideally in your workplace, you want a positive culture where people then get to like chime in. It's like, oh my God, Bobby, you did this so well. And then Beth said, yes, and this is awesome. And maybe we can do more of that. And what worked well for you? And how come you did all of those things? So really having it in the public sphere if it is positive. A stands for ask. Lead with curiosity. Don't assume you know what happened to this person or why they made that choice or that they are an idiot. It's very quickly and very easily for most of us with our negativity bias that is, pre-wired in us to go with they made a mistake. Maybe they didn't make a mistake. Maybe this was very intentional. So just ask before assuming. P stands for practice. And here I really invite you to take that growth mindset and employ that, because most of us, again, are not particularly skilled at doing this yet. So practice until you get it right. Be that learner versus I am right and come at it as a knower. And since skillful feedback isn't a monologue, right? It isn't a one person just spewing things out like a radio, but it really is a dialogue where one thing leads to another. So when you interact with other people who also want to get good at giving and receiving feedback, you'll probably find yourself in the position where you're giving a piece of feedback and then voila, you're getting feedback on your feedback. And now we're in this super yummy space where you have enough trust that it's like, oh, this worked well for me. That worked well for me. This I would like a little tweak on. Can we try again? And it, again, boils down to communication, right? The E in TAPE stands for effective. And we're going to dive into those 4 ingredients in a moment. S stands for success. What does success look like? And here I want you to really have A, figured out for yourself. And then B, don't leave it to chance. Be very, very specific. A while ago, I was working with a local arts and crafts organization. So this is a really creative bunch, right? They work with colors and shapes all day long. And we did a series of workshops around feedback. We start talking about the threat response and what happens in our brains and the different communication models. And then we start getting into practicing. And from one session to the next, I had asked them all, I said, hey, let's pretend that when we meet next week, we're going to paint this wall blue. And I want you all to bring in your blue colors. All right, next session, and they have all brought in a blue color because we're going to paint this wall blue. And what do you think happened?
They all had different blues.
They all had different blue colors, right? Because I had not been specific. Obviously, this was a designed, not specific, on purpose, just to really make and illustrate that point. Because blues comes in a lot of different shades and saturations. So when we don't really share what success looks like, then we're setting people up for failure. And that we do not want. So don't leave it to chance. All right. We're going to go in and dive into the 4 ingredients. I'm going to go over them pretty quickly, and then we're going to start flexing our feedback muscles. So here we go. The 4 ingredients that you need to ensure that your feedback is effective is starting with the description. What exactly is it, most specifically, that is going well or that needs a tweak? For instance, telling somebody they did a good job might make you feel good in the very moment, but it's pretty darn useless because I don't know what was good. Was it the pacing of my presentation? Is it the color scheme? Is it the content? And was it that I left enough time for questions at the end? I don't know what you're talking about. So I might get a little quick feel good, but it's not particularly effective. However, if somebody said, the images that you used in your presentation illustrated your points beautifully. Now that is specific, and now I know it's worth for me to dig up some imagery to put on 4 little ingredients here on the slide because it resonates with you. And so that's descriptive. The impact, now we're taking it to the next ninja level of skill set. What is the impact it has on you? Why is this important to me as I'm giving you this piece of feedback? For example, when you change your pitch and volume in your voice during the presentation, you kept my interest and I had an easier time taking in what you were saying. That is the impact it has on me. Or using pictures in your presentation really helps me as a visual learner. Thank you. So most of us are not used to being, in a sense, vulnerable enough to really share the impact it has on us. And we want to just bypass that. But it does, however, it's really that it connects us human to human. Why is this important? Why am I bothering? Why is this coming from? And again, going back to that first check mark, ideally it's coming from a helpful place. Otherwise, let's pause before we start blurting out. Okay, the next one is actionable? So you don't know because I'm sitting down, but I'm quite short. I'm like 5'1", maybe 5'2" on a good day. So if I'm getting the feedback that I'm short, it's going to get us absolutely nowhere because there's nothing I can do about it. And you should see my heels. I'm trying to stretch out this concentrated awesome to the best of my ability, but I am 50 years old. I am not going to be able to grow any taller. So another checkpoint is the piece of feedback I want to give actionable? Is this person do they have the capacity to do anything about it? If not, let's not waste anybody's time. I also wish I was taller, by the way, but still, I can't do anything about it. So the last piece that is absolutely crucial is understanding. Ask the person that you're giving the feedback to what they have heard and understood of what you're saying. And this is really the responsibility of the giver. So we don't want to bypass this. And again, it kind of, in a sense, is tied to the actionable, because if I don't know exactly what you're asking of me, I probably won't act on it, even if I would think it's valuable and I would see it as a gift. So oftentimes when we receive feedback, we do get flooded, right? Our cortisol levels rise, our prefrontal cortex shuts down, and we are in this sort of threat response and we don't know what to do with ourselves. That's not a place where I'm like, oh, so that would be helpful for you. Now I understand. Or maybe we get really hung up on this one word. Well, you said that one thing. And it's true, I probably did say that one thing, but I also said all these other things. So did you hear them? So ending any interaction, and again, this is why feedback is a dialogue, with ensuring understanding. And if the person that you're giving the feedback to hasn't understood you, then you get this is again where we take on this practice. I want to get it right, because that's more important than to me feeling that I am right in this very moment, but I already told you. Well, that's completely useless, right? I can sit here and have this presentation in Swedish, and my guess is most of you don't speak Swedish, so that would be pretty useless because you do not understand that and what I'm saying. I'm fluent in Swedish, so I can do it, but that's less helpful. Okay, so those are these ingredients that are a key component to effective feedback. So again, it is so much better to start giving positive feedback, because before we're skilled at giving positive feedback, we're probably not at the level to give that redirective feedback yet. Unless you have already created a very trusting environment where you can deal with as the receiver can deal with and can handle that, this is probably going to come out a little rough on the edges, but it's worth it for me because I'm still so curious and I'm still pulling, and I can just live with that you're not skilled yet, but I still want to know in this very moment. So we're going to start practicing, because this is how we get better at things. Nobody learned how to ride a bicycle by reading a book, right? So we have to practice a little bit. So here's a couple of different options I want to give you. You all have this handout, the action guide, and in here you see these 4 different ingredients. So I want to offer you a couple of different ways of learning how to wrap these gifts really nicely. So one is giving me feedback, and it could be redirective or just positive. I'm very, very good at receiving feedback. So it's hard to hurt my feelings. So that's one way of bringing it. So you can take these, the descriptive, the impact, the actionable, and the understanding, and take something that has happened in this past half hour or so that we spent together that you want to give me feedback on. And you write down just a few different things. So you get a sense, you might, like just have the order ready. So that's one option. Another option is that you take that same worksheet and the action guide and you think about some other context, some other person, some other situation that you want to give feedback to. And you write down what you want to say to that person. And then we use that as an example. And I can help see if there's, room for a little guidance in how to do it more effectively. So I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to just write that down and think of it. And if you have any questions in the meantime, I'm happy to answer them. And then we would just start working with it. Sound good? Awesome. All right, I'll set a timer for 3 and then I'll come back. All right, how are we feeling? I want us to practice because it is really in the action that the magic happens. And I want you to be able to walk away today feeling that the material has been integrated. So we're doing it in this interactive way. So anybody who wanna go first, or rather, let me rephrase that. Who wants to go first, or should I volunteer somebody?
For those of you who are shy, don't worry, but this is a safe space, so feel free to unmute if you'd like to chime in. Otherwise, someone on the chamber team will be happy to participate.
Yeah, hey, hi, this is Karen. Can you hear me okay?
Hi, Karen. Yes, we can.
Hey, Karen.
Hi. Hey, so sorry I'm late today. So I was late getting into the action guide and I did offer a little feedback. But I need feedback because I want to reach out as also a peer group facilitator, and I want to reach out obviously at the global level and to be able to identify with multiple different culture groups of women is difficult. Even inside of, the African American community, there are diverse groups, very difficult to identify with everybody. And that can be difficult. And that was one of the things I felt needed changing, because it's the way I give feedback, as a coach. It's been difficult. I mean, I'm working through it on my own, but that's why I like you have this group today. Thank you.
Yeah. So is there, was that the feedback you wanted to give on this workshop?
Oh no, this is just, I was trying to catch up because I was late. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, 10 after 12. What's going on? I missed
Yeah.
first part. And then I went to the feedback action guide and I thought it was about me. I wasn't sure. I missed the first part.
Okay. Yes,
The
I could have
feedback that I
repeated the
gave
instructions.
was just directly to Hanna. And then, so I'm sorry, maybe I'm coming in at the wrong time.
No, there's no wrong time. It's always a good time to come in and contribute. So if there is something specific as far as wanting to use these different ingredients, and if there was something that you wanted to practice on, we could do that. But we can also come back to you and see if there's somebody else who wants to chime in and have like an example that feels relevant to them in this moment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I wanted to chime in. This is Kendra.
Hi,
On
Kendra.
the ingredient. Hi, how are you?
Yes, on the ingredients.
Sorry, I had to turn back to my notes. On the ingredient for, hold on, I'm looking at my notes.
Yes.
On actionable, or actually for understand. So the notes that I have that you had mentioned was asking the person if they have heard and understood what it was that you asked them. And so for me, the feedback that I have, because that is something that I struggle with, when I give feedback, I don't necessarily ask if they understood unless it's just clear that they didn't understand. So for me, I guess it would just be trying to learn how to, respectively ask them if they understood without them taking offense or, them providing some sort of feedback to me on, did I say something incorrectly? Did I say it wrong? Or did they are just not on the same page as me at all?
Yes, good. Yes, perfect. So that is that interesting thing of like feedback constantly being a dialogue, right? It is not me as the giver just radio sending something and then hoping, wishing, praying that they understood, integrated it, and then actually possibly, hopefully wanted to make a shift. So it's the quick way, which is usually not the most effective way, is asking, do you understand? And the number of times people walk away with like, yeah, and then we are not on the same page. They have not understood actually the message that you were sending. So asking, how would you, or what did you hear me say? And that could sound a little patronizing, and especially if I like take on my mommy voice, right? We don't want that. So there's different ways of just asking, what was the key point? Or what is it? Was there something that I said that doesn't sit well with you? And again, in that, we're starting that dialogue. So you get it as the giver, you get a chance to sort of course correct if you want, or clarify even further. So what is the piece that is tricky for you to hear right now? Is there something that I could say in a different way? And just continue just like pulling in a sense, then as the giver, you're the one pulling, but you're pulling for understanding. Yes. Does that make sense, Kendra?
It makes sense to me. And I was also going to say that just in the context of whatever the message is that is trying to be delivered, that there could be some sort of disconnect or misunderstanding if the message is too detailed, as opposed to, keeping it short and simple. But then it also can be, reversed, that if it's short and simple, it's not enough detail. But then a lot of people get lost when there is way too much detail.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent point. So this is also an interesting thing, because as the leader, and ideally we all consider ourselves being leaders regardless of title, right? Because it's in our conduct and how we show up in the world. We don't want to flood people. And if they're already, their nervous system is triggered, if you continued with just a bunch of detail, it might go back to that tea and tapes and just figure out the timing. If you need to calm down, maybe take a walk around the block, come back to me. Let's pick this up in 10 minutes or maybe tomorrow, and then ask, what kind of resources do you need from me to be able to do whatever it is that I was asking you to do? When we're also in the workplace or, other relationships as well, we have a hierarchy. So we have a power differential. So to just be really mindful of that, and of just, how am I coming across right now? Is this person most likely feeling I'm being talked at? Or can I lower it, shift the balance, so we have a dialogue? And to me, this comes into also, even if I am the leader and I have maybe a higher status or in the hierarchy in a workplace, I'm always asking for feedback. I'm pulling just as much from the people working with me, regardless of title. If I went back in the day when I had a boss or my peers or my direct reports, because I want to know. And when we create that kind of culture, that feedback isn't something that happens at the annual review once a year and you're supposed to remember some things that happened 6 months ago, but it's like part of the dialogue. We can lower the stakes. And it's going to take a minute to get there. I recognize that. All right, I see a bunch of raised hands. So I'm happy to continue to answer questions, or if there's somebody who has a specific topic or situation that they want to run through this worksheet with me on, I'm open to that as well. But Karen, I see your hand.
Yeah, let's go to Karen, and then there's a couple comments in chat, Hannah, after that.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just commenting without chatting. But my comment has to do with when people are speaking English as a second language, sometimes we may get that hierarchy confused. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is recognizing, in spite of the hierarchy, the power of the people we're giving feedback to, I think, is more important than owning the position in the hierarchy, because we are to be, as an educator and, as a peer facilitator, I feel that I'm the one who needs to learn, right? I'm the one who needs to learn from the environment and the people in the room. So that's a comment. And then my question is, what is your take on that? Because I feel that's the question we should be asking. What do you think about it? Not, how do you feel or any of that stuff. It's like, what is your take on that position? Because all positions have multiple facets that we should be learning from, right?
For sure. Yeah. So when I go out in organizations, one of the first exercises I almost, regardless of what training that I'm doing, is that we talk about all these different identities. And it's places where you can be an up or an down, and depending on, I was born in a white bodysuit, so I'm white, so I have an up there. I'm a woman, so I have a down there because male is still, the norm,
and
right?
English is your second language.
English is my second language. I'm an immigrant, right? I didn't grow up here. The cultural references that I'm like, what are we talking about? I don't know.
Exactly.
Then sometimes I decide, can I choose to, in this moment, feel curious about what it is that I'm not understanding? Or will I see that as, ooh, I'm losing status because I'm showing my ignorance? And a lot of that has to do with just me, right? My mindset and what I'm up for in that moment.
How you were raised and the culture you were raised in as a woman in those, male supreme societies and those cultures. We have to break that, right?
Yeah. So to me, every time that I feel, how do I say, probably safer in myself, realizing that my inherent value on this earth has nothing to do with my title or my gender or my anything. It's just my birthright is that I'm coming with this value. And if I can then put on my curiosity hat, and I don't know when you came in during the presentation, but we talked a lot about leading with curiosity and asking and clarifying. Because I have said in more than one occasion in a meeting, in my previous life, I was a television executive, and I was usually the only woman in the room and always the youngest. And I sat in there and people are talking about things, and I'm like, I don't really know what we're talking about right now. So I can choose in that moment, am I feeling stupid? And am I going to reveal that I don't know? And then with that, what are they going to think of me? Or what happened more than once was I realized I wasn't going to sort of fess up that I didn't know. And I then thought I knew what we were talking about. And the blunders and the mistakes that could come out of that choice was way worse than for me to decide. And the way that I learned to phrase it. And I'm like, oh, I'm just curious. You mentioned yada, yada. I'm not quite up to speed. Or one of my favorite phrases, having grown up in Europe, was, oh, I don't think that concept traveled the Atlantic the other direction. So can you fill me in? And then I don't feel stupid. I'm actually curious, and I'm looking to learn, and I'm looking to educate myself because I want to be in the know. So how I phrase it and my position and my mindset and how I respond to it, that's where it all comes down. But it is very, very interesting. And to me, when I talk about communication skills, like, yes, skillfully giving and receiving feedback is a part of that. But I have learned so many different ways to communicate. And English is my second language, and you hear my accent, and sometimes I stumble on words, but can I still come at it from a place of kindness and curiosity? And when I hit that, I feel like I'm in a good place. And it also helps me have so much more compassion and empathy for other people that are stumbling through it, because I've been there and I still am there, depending on, right? So we have a few more minutes. I want to see if there's anybody else who wants to go through the acronym or the 4 ingredients. And otherwise, I have an example before I want to round off today. So anybody who wants to dive in.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if Pamela would like to share. Otherwise,
no, thank you.
Okay, we're good then. And Bobby, did you have anything to say? I know you had your hand up for a minute there.
I'm good. I was just going to say, I've seen the effective means thing be described as, when the X happened, it made me feel this way. Next time we get in that situation, can we try this? Let me know if that will work for you, as like the least confrontational method. And in fact, my life coach went through this tapes thing with me in the last month, and it was really cool to see it here.
Excellent. Yes, because the more skilled we all get, right? When we're in a situation in an organization or in life or at home or in our communities or spiritual communities, when we all learn this, we all both just, we all rise. And we know how much tremendous amount of conflict there is in this world today. And so if we can do it here for ourselves, and we can spread, it'll be like rings on the water, and we can spread this, where the amount of conflict, frustration, annoyances, they should just know. Like, no, people don't know. And they're not mind readers. All right, Pamela, back to you.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Well, then it's not back to you. All right. So here, then I want to use, that's perfectly fine. I really appreciate people setting their boundaries. And if this is not the time and the place, then yes, saying no rather to do something that is tremendously uncomfortable. It has to feel safe. So kudos to you for honoring your boundaries. So I want to give an example. Earlier this week, I was in email communication with Bobby and Beth about this presentation. And I had asked a bunch of clarification questions because, again, as a former television producer, the devil's in the details, and I want to know about this, I want to know about that, and can we do this, and can we do that? So I got a long email back from Bobby, and he writes this and this and this and this, and at the end, he said, I hope this email wasn't too long. So for me, I see him as in he's pulling for feedback. He's asking this question. So here's my feedback. I think I wrote, oh, I love emails that are clear, right? So I used the descriptive part. I really appreciated the description. What I didn't say, which I'll add now, is the impact it had on me. The impact it had on me is that I came into today feeling really well set up. I knew what was going on. I knew what the expectations were. I knew who was going to do what. And my stress level went, whew. Now I can focus on showing up, talking about what I'm here to talk about. And I don't have to worry about dropping things in the chat. And I don't have to worry about letting people into the room. And I don't have to worry about all of that. So the description was, I really appreciate detailed, thorough email. My stress level goes down and I feel better prepared. Now, in this case, there is really no actionable because it already happened and it was a positive thing. The actionable could be like, keep doing what you're doing because it really works for me. And I haven't checked in on the understanding. So Bobby, would you mind? Do we have an understanding?
I think we do, and I really appreciate you communicating positively and providing the feedback and like completing the loop. So you did the mind reading that you are suggesting is impossible, but I suspect that you have a lot of what did I say? Understanding of what's going on behind the scenes and can guess correctly a lot more often than I can, or just those without this experience.
Perfect. Thank you. So that was a little, in a mini role play in a sense. So that is what feedback could look like, right? And if we had more questions, I would ask more clarification questions like, oh, what's amiss? Or what kind of support did you need from me? Or how could I do this differently for you next time? So it's a continuous loop. So we're going to almost wrap up. So I want to offer you a few more things before we wrap up. One is this: do you want more? Then this is an awesome way to get more. What we learned today is that feedback really can be a gift, and it just depends on how you wrap it. Do you have the right paper, the right wrapper? Is the timing right? We also know that people, employees, are 89% more engaged when they're learning, and feedback can truly be seen as a learning tool. So at this QR code, which is also on your action guide, you get a chance to continue practicing. And I've created a handout for you. That's another practicing tool for entry points of conversations for effective feedback. So that is a worksheet to guide you. And then I am sure that some of you are ready for more support, and whether that is in one-on-one coaching or if that's a training that in your organization or with your team or a workshop such as this, then I've created a few strategy call opportunities that you can apply for also using this QR code. Okay. And lastly, of course, since we're talking about feedback, I love feedback, right? This is my jam. I can talk about this all day long. And I really, truly, honestly want the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I do not care if it's skillfully presented or not, because feedback is how I learn. This is how I get to get better. And most of, we may meet again. And if we meet at a mixer in 3 months, you may like, oh, Hannah, that feedback workshop that you held, I really thought that blah, blah, blah. Give it to me here and now. So at that same QR code that, again, is on your worksheet, is a place to just give me short and sweet. If you want to start flexing these muscles that we've been practicing today and do it using the acronym or including those 4 ingredients, please do. But otherwise, they're 3 easy questions and they're tremendously helpful to me. So thank you for choosing to spend your hour with me, digging in and learning and getting curious on feedback. If you want to get a hold of me, you have all my contact information here at the bottom as well. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I have a little newsletter and I'm a pretty active poster on LinkedIn because it's all about communications and skillfully doing so. And the better we get, the better it gets. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Hanna. We will send a follow-up email to everyone who registered today. So we'll include the handout. We'll include how to get in touch with Hanna and anything else that she'd like to provide. So on behalf of Hanna, the Chamber, the Berkeley Public Library, thank you for spending your hour with us. And we hope to see you at another Chamber event very soon. So have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanna. Thank you, attendees.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.